reviewing Inventions, Evolution of Ideas from Eagle-Gryphon Games. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee.
Vincent, get back here this instant! Oh,
Thank you. Oh, I love you too. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. Thank you.
Before we start, you should know that all the components seen in this video are from the prototype version of the game and do not necessarily represent the final look of the product. That said, it's still damn pretty. Now, back to our review. Inventions is the latest game from esteemed designer Lacerda and illustrated by the ridiculously talented Ian O'Toole. I mean, seriously, just look at this artwork. O'Toole's absolutely excellent sense of visual design and attention to detail is the gift that keeps on giving. Somehow this guy manages to conjure up a unique aesthetic for every project he works on that elevates it from mere game to full-on experience.
So you like the art?
Yeah, it's alright. Inventions is a 1 to 4 player competitive worker placement about the evolution of ideas and the pursuit of knowledge required to make those ideas a reality. And it is brilliantly executed. But with that said, I gotta warn you, there is a lot of upfront information to take in when learning this game that might scare a few of you off. And the last thing I want to do is scare you off because this game is too good to miss. If you like heavy euros. Since this game arrived at my door, I've taught it to a few people, and the common sentiment tends to be, I'm not smart enough to play this. And I get that, I do. When Inventions was first taught to me, I was overwhelmed. There was just so much going on, so many possible options of things to do and different ways to do them that I felt paralyzed. I didn't get it, and I was convinced that I would never get it. Hell, if it wasn't for Ryan holding my hand through the entire experience, I'm not convinced anything would have been gotten. And yes, for those of you wondering, that is Mr. Ryan Schoon from Man vs. Meeple.
Hi.
Ah! Oh my god, I thought that was a picture.
Okay. Alright. My initial struggle with the rules wasn't because I'm an idiot.
You mean that's not the only reason?
It was because I was approaching it all wrong. I was trying to commit every possible action to memory, when what I needed to do was learn how to read. You see, like other games in the Lacerda O'Toole lineup, helpful iconography is strewn all over the board to help guide you through your experience. Look here. Every possible action you can take on your turn is made up of multiple steps, and each of those steps is illustrated on the board itself. Sure, at first there will be a lot of, what does this mean? How does this work? Where does this go? And that's okay, because in the beginning it's going to seem impossible, but then you're going to reach that moment where you look down at the board and everything just clicks. And when that happens, you're going to feel like a fucking genius. Now, I can't speak to the learning aspect of Inventions without bringing up the rule book, and this one is really good. I mean, it's not on Mars good, but it's very close. The one I have here is just a loose page prototype printout. Yours will not be this. I really like the layout of the book, how each action has its own dedicated page with clearly explained instructions and visual examples. And including the icon for each action on the corner of its respective page made it super easy to find the information that I was looking for. Now, much like on Mars, Inventions also comes with an easy-to-follow player aid, which is extremely useful. Except for one thing. While I was still learning the game, I would reference this player aid quite a bit. But when it came to looking up these specialist tiles, I couldn't find absolutely any information in here at all. So I did my best to interpret what I thought the icons meant based on what I knew of the other tiles and pushed forward. Eventually, I did find the information I was looking for. And you know where I found it? At the very back of the rulebook. Now, why I never flipped to the back of the rulebook, I don't know. Maybe I stopped reading as soon as I reached the 2-player instructions because I was never intending to play with less than 3. Or maybe because it came after 3 text-heavy pages of historical facts used to justify the existence of every card and tile in the game, which I'm sure some people will absolutely love, but to be honest, I am never going to read. So yes, I am partly to blame for my own frustrations, but regardless, I cannot fathom why you wouldn't just include the information for those tiles in the player aid with all the other tiles. Alright, that's enough ranting. Let's take this in another direction. One of the primary aspects that I love about this game is how players can feed off each other to better their own civilization. For example, let's say the yellow player had an idea for a lighthouse, but they didn't know anything about sailing, which meant at this point having a lighthouse was nothing more than a pipe dream. But then along comes the purple player with all their sailing know-how and makes that idea a reality. And what's this? It appears the blue player has some ideas of their own to improve on this invention. So they too hop on board the collaboration train, and now we got 3 civilizations in one region making strides in evolutionary thinking and invention. Which is great, but the fruits of their labor won't be truly realized until one of them shares this invention with the rest of humanity. And I quite enjoy this part. When you share an idea, the civilization who presented the idea gets to keep the points listed on the card. The inventor of the idea gets to keep the card itself, which has some useful benefits which we'll touch on later. And the innovator, this guy right here, gets to increase the size of their civilization in that region by 1. I assume that's because they were so excited about their breakthrough that they just ran home to celebrate with the missus. Oh, and the person who shared the idea gets to take one of these. That's a whole other thing. We'll get to that later. The loop of presenting an idea, inventing that idea, and sharing it with the world is what makes up the core of Inventions gameplay. And the ability to collaborate with other players, whether they like it or not, is such a fun little mechanic. Sometimes I'll just present a bunch of ideas, casting them out there like a worm on a hook, just waiting for another civilization to take the bait. Let them invent it. And when one of us inevitably shares the idea with the rest of the world, who's getting all those points? This guy. Sure, you could present the idea, invent it, and share it all on your own, hogging all the points, cards, and tiles for yourself, but where's the fun in that? Actually, it is a lot of fun. I recommend you should try it. It's good. It's a good time. It's all good. It's all good. I like the concept that anybody can come up with an idea, but you need the right knowledge to invent it. It just makes sense. I also like to think of knowledge as a currency that you earn but never lose. Well, almost never, but we'll touch on that sore spot in just a bit. Speaking of knowledge, all the knowledge in the world, well, at least this cardboard version of it, is tracked here. These big square tiles are milestones that represent breakthroughs in human ingenuity and the knowledge of your people. All the tiles in this column represent common knowledge, the stuff everyone knows, fires, tools, transportation, that sort of thing. The column next to it represents knowledge exclusive to your people. The yellow civilization, for example, are experts in cotton, but they know nothing about sailing. That's the purple people's specialty. But you do have the option of sending over a diplomat to learn that knowledge from the purple people, which will allow you to invent things like the lighthouse, which you couldn't have done before because you didn't have that knowledge. But now you do, right? You sent over Mr. Yellow here to learn all he could so he could share that knowledge with the rest of your civilization so they could build all this cool stuff with the knowledge that they now know? Let's stick a pin in that idea for now, shall we? Inventions does a fabulous job of weaving together theme and mechanics into a beautiful gift basket filled with multiple avenues to success that flows seamlessly into this big thematic picture laid out before us. And nowhere does that shine more than with this milestone mechanic. You see, as you progress forward, ever trying to improve your society by reaching one new milestone after the next, you start to impact what becomes known as common knowledge. Because what is now old news to you starts to permeate throughout the rest of humanity. Everyone else is learning from your advancements. And I just love how all that plays into the context of the game's theme, and how well it works as a game mechanic. And it doesn't stop there. As time literally marches on, any milestones that would be considered behind the times, as indicated on this era track, also fall into the parameters of common knowledge. Not only does this help less developed civilizations catch up, it also drives home the idea that you're not the only civilizations on this planet doing stuff, because time and stuff will continue to happen with or without you. And although there are a lot of abstract bits to Inventions, I've never felt that it distracted from the overall theme. Well, almost never.
Remember Mr. Yellow, the guy we sent over to learn all about sailing so his people can invent the lighthouse? Well, if you call him back home, your civilization loses all that knowledge. The whole lot of them just forget it ever happened.
Hey, Jimbo, ever wonder how we built these big concrete candles? Nope. Alright then, you have yourself a nice day.
It's like the Men in Black showed up with their little flashy thing and wiped out everyone's memory. I mean, how does that even make sense? How does a whole civilization forget how to do or build a thing that they've been doing for years? I'd like to retract my previous statement.
Interaction in the game of Invention is there, but it's not all that aggressive or disruptive to other players. There are very few things you can do that would classify as screwing over another player, but it's not a heads down type of game either. You're very aware of what everyone else is doing because it's possible that their actions will impact your next move, but rarely have I felt locked out of whatever it is I wanted to do. You see, unlike a lot of other games that present you with a "this is what you got, so what are you gonna do with it" scenario, Inventions simply asks the question, what do you want to do? And it's up to you to find the door that gets you there. You see, these are your 10 main actions, and for the most part, everything you'll ever want to do, you can find right here. And like any other worker placement, to take one of those actions, you just need to place a worker or a pillar on the action you want to take. But here's the catch. As long as one of your pillars is on an action, you can't take that action nor the action next to it. And the more pillars you place, the more limited your options become. But if you look closely around the board, you'll recognize much of the same iconography used to identify a specific action depicted on the tiles, cards, and even the board itself. This brings us back to the question, what do you want to do? Assuming the simple answer, place your pillar on the action you want to take, is out of the question, you'll start to scan the board looking for a back door that leads you to the action you want to take. But sometimes the path to that door isn't always a straight line. Maybe I take this action here, which leads me to this sage over here, who allows me to present an idea that gets me to the invent action, which in the end got me to the action I wanted to take in the first place. This puzzle of figuring out how to get what I want in this crazy roundabout way of linking one action to another tickles my brain in the best possible way, and I just want to tickle it all day. That sounds dirty, right? Or is it just me? By now, you've probably gathered that I'm a fan of Inventions, but there's one part that I am definitely not a fan of, and that's the setup. Something about it just seems so fiddly and clumsy, like I'm tripping over myself to get everyone everything they need. And then, just when you think it's over, you move on to the Stone Age setup round, which is basically a watered-down version of a regular round that you play to get you up and running with some minimum board presence and a few additional starting bonuses based on your placement choices. Now, some people may argue that the game starts with the Stone Age setup round, but it doesn't feel that way to me. To me, it feels more like an extension of the overly cumbersome setup that has me constantly double-checking the instructions because I'm sure that I missed something. Granted, when the game starts up, you can see why it was all necessary, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. Oh, and a note that I should have probably mentioned when talking about the learning of this game. Teaching Inventions is exhausting. You're either teaching everything up front, which can get tiresome, or you're answering questions all the way through, which is exasperated by my need to teach people how to read the iconography so they can figure things out on their own. Teach them how to fish and all that. If there was ever a need for one of those throwaway, it's just a learning game games, this is it. Just take it out for a spin, try everything you can, forget about winning, and just get there and get dirty. It's honestly the best way to learn. I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is a lot to Inventions, and a lot of it I haven't even covered. There's these sages that will impart their wisdom for a cost of a single link. Influence markers that open up more link options and scoring possibilities. Endgame scoring cards that act as achievements that award you points at the end of the game if you achieve them. An influence track that earns you more links. And your very own invention supply that unlocks additional backdoors to the actions you want to take and provides discounts for future progress tiles. Which brings us to the Society Board. Think of this as a personal progress board to help propel your society forward and earn you some buku points if you play it right. The Society Board takes the game to a whole other level of min-maxing that you'll want to use to get the most out of your civilization. As a new player, you're probably not going to appreciate all that these progress tiles can do for you. And if you're anything like me, you'll just ignore it the first time you play. And that's okay. Mind you, if anyone else at the table is using the board and you're not, you're probably going to lose. Okay, final thoughts. Inventions is in no way an entry-level game, but you've probably pieced that together by now. Although, if you're an experienced gamer looking to get into heavier Euros, then the step-by-step approach of Inventions iconography is a great first-time experience. Although you probably won't realize that until you play it a second time. The art in the game is great and fits the theme beautifully. The teach can be tough, but so worth it. Just hang in there, because when you get it, you're gonna love it. And the thought-provoking gameplay will keep you engaged the whole time, and as you get better, the experience will too. Yeah, I had a few little finicky complaints, but nothing that should sway you from giving this game a try. I personally think the game is awesome, and after a play or two, let's call it 2 to be safe, I'm confident that you'll like it as well. And with that, I am happy to award Inventions the Board Game Coffee seal of approval. You've earned it.
Bye.
Oh god, it's like Hogwarts up in this. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.